I think it's really important for you to check yourself. If you're not ready for some of those conversations, then let them know. Being very honest, like you definitely told me this a few months back when you were like, as long as you're as honest as you could be with your kids, letting them know, like, I'm not ready for this conversation, but I can absolutely talk to you about it when I am, and we can come together and just being completely honest with them. Like, unfortunately, this is what I can give you, buddy.
Exactly.
Like, this is what I got.
Right. And I think that's like a thing too, like in general, you could just do your best. Yeah. And we all do our best as parents. Like the stats show, we find it rewarding. We find it exhilarating. We find it like, for me, it was euphoric seeing my kid the first time. It's like a high that you would never experience. So we want to be in that role. So we're doing our best, but we're really hard on ourselves sometimes. So like forgiveness is okay. And that should be a stigma that definitely is decreased in all ways, because forgiveness is huge. And then, of course, we had the question of, have you ever had trouble forgiving your mother?
Just in terms of like forgiveness, just making sure like forgiveness is not something that you deserve because of your age or who you are, right? Like, everyone deserves forgiveness.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah, like you should be able to give it and receive it, like, no matter the age you are.
Good point, because even if you're older and you're like, I cut my mom off anyways, it doesn't matter. Like, that's still affecting you, even if you emotionally cut off your mom. And then we're going to get to that after. But you're never too old enough to go through that conversation with your mom and say, like, this really bothered me. And be curious and compassionate, because that's going to go further than you being judgmental and critical.
Yeah.
So it was 100%. But mind you, I have a small pool of people. But have you ever had trouble forgiving your mother? 100% of people said yes. So it shows it was 10 voters. So it's not a lot of people, like I said, but 10 people had the same experience. So I would imagine other people have that same experience too.
Yes. Those people that didn't vote it, but you can talk about it in the comments, right? Or you can let us know if you meant to vote yes or no.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we've all had experiences of when we needed to forgive our mothers.
Yeah.
And, in my case, I feel like it wasn't necessarily a conversation between her and I. It was more of a forgiving within myself, right? Which I've gone to therapy, still going to therapy about it.
So it's like really hard. That's probably very difficult and disappointing that you don't have that ability to be curious and ask more questions.
Right. Yeah. It is difficult. It is really difficult, because you do want you want a way to kind of understand the situation a little better, right? But I feel like the best way that I was able to forgive my biological mom was more based off of the difficulties motherhood comes with.
Yeah. So when you became a mom?
Yeah. So like it like I said, guys, I'm still going to therapy for it, but like it's easier now that I'm able to really see how difficult it is to be a parent. And right now I'm more of two parents because I'm a single mom, and my mom was a single mom at that point when she had me, and like just
about a few kids.
I was the
handful of kids.
I was the sixth one. So imagine being a single mom of so many kids, and in my head I come up with this story just like maybe she needed the extra help, right? And this was the way for her to get it. Just like really seeing how I only have one kid, and sometimes it feels like 7. And at the end of the day, like I have to go to sleep at his bedtime because I done dealt with one kid that feels like 7, right? Like, so imagine, so like really internal, taking the steps to really say, you know what? I don't blame her for asking for extra help, right? Again, that was the story I came up with just to try to understand her, right?
But it's like, it's not really a story, it's your compassion. It's your understanding of it.
Yes.
your compassion is your understanding of it, and that's from your perspective. This is what she needed to do,
Right.
because I don't, like, obviously listeners won't know, but like, explain what you mean when you say she had to look for extra help.
So in terms of looking for extra help, my mom decided that her and her sister decided that I was best living with my aunt. So my aunt and her husband took me in and basically raised me my entire life.
Yeah, that's your mom and dad.
Entire life. Right.
Right.
That is considered my mother and my father, because they raised me. They do, and that's, in my eyes, that is a mother and father.
Yeah. And your kids call them
And
grandma
and grandpa. Absolutely.
I mean, your kid. Yeah. As a
kid, or in the future, eventually, maybe.
When you're a dog mom.
Right.
Will be the grandma and grandpa.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So they are grandma and grandpa, mom and dad. And usually when I refer to mom and dad, those are the people I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
This is my other mom, my biological mom.
That you had to forgive. That was hard. Yeah.
Right.
And that's like a whole life of forgiveness, because you're like, you've missed. You could like probably write a book about how many things that they missed, and it's like, that's like a lot to forgive. That's a lot to forgive. Like, for me, one of the recent conversations I had with my mom was, I had to forgive her for not like caring about my senior year prom. Nothing, like, I didn't really have any of that. I went to prom with Monty because like, my grandmother was like, you're going to some prom. It's not going to be yours, but it's going to be some prom. And I appreciate her for that, but I wasn't with my friends from school. So I recently told Mom, like, I do forgive you for that. She apologized. Like, we had that mending conversation. It's healing, and she's like, that's why I want you to get married, because I want to make up for it, And I'm like, well, for me, you don't have to make up for it, because what's happened has happened. But the fact that you can acknowledge it helps me be compassionate. Like, at that time, I was mad. At that time, I was like, why wouldn't so many judgmental thoughts. Like, why wouldn't anybody want to help their kid pay for their prom, dress them up, do all of these fun things?
But I'm your only daughter.
Yeah. Like, literally thinking about it, I'm like, my mom was 17, pregnant with me.
Right.
So she, in a sense, like, when I think about just the pressure of having to financially provide for me while she's also going to school. She also took in her niece, so she was raising 3 by the age of 19. Like, in that realm of things, she was surviving. Like, in a lot of ways, that's how I can be compassionate towards that. So it helps me forgive her for that, and the fact that she talks about it with me is even more helpful. But it's really hard, because even when my daughter brings it up, like, Mom, did you go to prom? I'm like, no. Or like, did me and Mom, you come to your baseball games? I'm like, no, not really. But she was a surviving mom. Like, she was literally in survival mode. And now that we're in a different place, we're able to talk about how that felt for her. Right. So that's really healing.
That's good that you have that outlet where you can, like, who's the best person to go to other than the source, right? Yeah. You have that where you can really sit there and have that conversation with her. She's able to receive it too, That's also really important, because I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to tell you what affected me. Right. And then how can we be adults together?
Oh, what I learned from her ability to hear me out, is how I can do it for my own kid. So I feel like it just gets better with generations. Like, I might not do it perfectly, but I'm doing it the best I can. And my mom did it the best she can. Right. And she's, even if it's later in my life, she still taught me something valuable, which is, it's okay to take accountability and then ask for forgiveness as a mom and move forward to a better relationship. Right. So, like, the hope is that it would only get better throughout the generations. Right? Because it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Then the last poll that I had was, have you ever gone through a period where it was easier emotionally to cut off your mother? 78% said yes, and then 22% said no. So I'd like to see what you think about it.
wow, we just cutting people off, trying to get that
You gotta talk. You gotta talk.
You gotta talk.
Yeah, that's a hard question too to just be very vulnerable about. So I do appreciate the people that took that poll because
for sure.
That's like vulnerable feelings. Like you had to cut your mom off. That's hot.
Yes. I mean, your mom, you came from your mom.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you are the product of your mother, unfortunately. That's what we are, right?
However, the question does say for a period of time.
Yeah, that's right.
When I was thinking about it, I thought about like, okay, emotional cutoff for me is not helpful for a long-term thing.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay. Don't do it again.
Not do it again. Okay, next time, I will remember to put on Do Not Disturb.
So, emotional cutoff, I think for me is, in my opinion, not helpful long term, but sometimes needed for like a little reset of the relationship. Like I've gone through it, and I could talk to my point was I was just so mad at my mom. I think I had validation. My mom validated this after, but at the time, I was so mad at her that I didn't even want to talk to her or even look at her. Like, frankly, I just had a moment. Like, so in order for me to reset that feeling and really, really dive into that feeling, I just needed my time to be upset.
Yeah.
Without her pushing a narrative of guilt or anybody else in that matter, because other family gets involved. And then they're like, oh, you shouldn't treat your mom like that, or you need to respect your mom. And it's like, yeah, but I'm hurt. So I could.
Right. Like, I'm human.
Yeah, I'm human. I can soak in these feelings. And then when I was ready, it wasn't long, probably a couple months, 3 months. But that's long for a mom. Yeah. Like, if you imagine when our kids cut us off for 3 months, that probably feels like lifetime.
Right.
But at the time, I was like, I just needed it. What I feel like it does put you in a position where the person is like, okay, let me hear you out. And what do you need from me next time? Right. So then you could set the boundary of like, okay, when you did this, it just really pissed me off. And I just can't be in any friendship, relationship like that. So that's why I needed the time. So then they already know what hurt you, and they can also talk to what you did that made them do that, right? Allow people to be compassionate, self-compassionate to themselves, and then you can come together and be compassionate towards each other. Yeah.
I mean, I can't really say that I cut my mom off. Ever. I mean, like, since we're being real, I don't really feel like we've ever had a relationship. For me to just really cut her off. But I cut off other people. Like, so I can understand that I need a break from this relationship, and then let me articulate my thoughts and really try to understand them myself so that I can communicate them to you. And then we can come together and figure out what's the next best thing. Right. So I really do understand that part of it.
I do want to acknowledge, like, there are just, like, we're talking in general with moms that show these feelings, vulnerability, compassion. But there's some moms that are just stoic. They're just like, they're very, very hard to get along with. Maybe even a narcissistic mom or somebody going through a depression or personality disorders. Yeah. So those are really, in general, people are hard to get along with. So I feel like in that sense, I don't think emotional cutoff is even the right thing in that case either. In my opinion, it's not helping you resolve issues or set boundaries with that person either. So they're still in a sense having control over that relationship, because you're either cutting them off or you're all in, and there has to be a balance. If you cut them off, you're never showing them that there's some control of the relationship there.
Right. Because now I'm like, oh, they don't want to talk to me. Whatever, I don't care.
They'll come back in a year. You know, they'll come back when they're ready. Like, you know, so like if you just learn to balance it, like an example of that would be like if you had an alcoholic parent, and they called you every day at the same time. cursing you out. I would say,
Yeah.
I'm not going to answer the phone for you after 6 o'clock. That's my boundary.
Right.
And just like make sure that you're still showing love. You still love them. I'll talk to you when you're sober. But
Right.
if you're 6 p.m. after 6 p.m. you're berating me, like, don't really care for it right now.
You
don't need it.
Tired.
Yeah.
I'm too tired. That's no.
Yeah. But as just as an example, I don't know anybody. I'm not targeting anybody. That was just an out of the touch example. But because I know that there's like people that are gonna be like, well, there's very difficult moms to get along with.
Yeah.
And that is true.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen it.
I mean, again, we're all humans, right? And then the way we experience certain situations or events in our lives kind of mold who we are and our personalities and our mood. That transfers, right?
Yeah.
Our energy is transferable to other people. You're gonna get that. Whether you're the daughter, whether you're the girlfriend, unfortunately, you're gonna get that. It's more of like, how do you receive it, right? And what do you do since this is what you got?
Yeah, exactly. And that, speaking of energy, I come from a place of like, I chose this mom instead of like, she brought me into this world.
Right.
I mean, like, in my head, I chose my mom. And when I came, I chose a mom that was probably going through so much and probably in survival mode all my upbringing, all my life, right? And then we just came to a point where I was able to be compassionate about that. And there's like a reason for me having to be compassionate in this life. Yeah. So that's what I speak it to.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, that's interesting to say. I personally don't think that way.
Yeah.
I feel like our parents choose us.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately there are other choices in this world, right?
Yeah.
And so she chose to have me and I chose to have my son, right? So like how I approach motherhood is more based off of my kid is here because of me. I brought him here. Yeah. Now how I'm gonna protect him, how I'm gonna show him love, how I'm gonna be a mother, right? And how I feel about my mom is she chose me to be born, but she also chose me to be with someone who is more able versus her. Yeah. At least, again, that's the story. Like I said, that's the story that, huge disclaimer. And again, I'm not targeting my mom or anyone else, just saying in general, that's how I feel about, mothers.
Motherhood is hard in general, like, and for somebody to give up their kid, I feel like in that sense, it just shows like they wanted better in that moment. That's what they felt was best. And because motherhood is really hard. And going on that subject, like some people choose not to have their babies, but that's their motherly duty. Like they're still being a mom by saying, I can't take care of this kid.
I can't.
And I still like go back to like that. When I say like I chose my mom, it's more like a soul thing. When I'm soul searching, I chose the people in my life. I chose the dynamics like in my soul before I was in my body. And even if because my mom could have aborted me, she was like a teenager and she was told that she should have because she had she was going to school for this, or she had good track record, all of these things that could have really flourished to something.
Right.
But I chose a mom that, was willing to go into survival mode and just make it happen.
Go through the trenches with you.
Yeah, literally. Walking all around Hartford. Yeah.
Right.
I did have, because we're all parents that grow each day, right? We all are able to work on something, right? If you don't believe that, then just check yourself for a little bit. Because we all have some ability to be able to grow some way, somehow. If you're looking for any resources, there's really some interesting books that I've read or that were recommended to me about parenting. And that is Brain Body Parenting, The Whole Brain Child That one's by I don't know how to pronounce that name. It's Daniel Siegel, I think, and Tina Payne Bryson. Mm-hmm. There's Peaceful Parents, Happy Kids, Dr. Laura Markham. Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. So that's more if, like I talked about, we have some people have toxic moms. That is by Lindsay C. Gibson. Mm-hmm. And then Raising an Emotional Intelligent Child by John Gottman is my next go-to. So if you guys are interested in taking a dive into any of those, yes. And we could probably link it somehow in our video. Yes. And or have it as a resource under it. But if you are watching this, you probably have me on social media, so just hit me up if you need more info. Right.
And we'll be happy to share those with you guys. Mm-hmm. This is our first podcast / rapperish magic tips.
I said it before and I'll say it again. I feel like I'm becoming trying to become an upcoming rapper. Like everybody has a podcast, but it's been something that it's been on my mind for a while, so here we are.
Yes, we're finally putting it into effect, and so please be compassionate, and however, please comment your opinions and any ideas or anything down below and let us know. We're gonna try to put this on all social media platforms that we have. And on Spotify as well.
Yes. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. Mother's Day, yes. And remember, this is a little tidbit to go with. Mm-hmm. If you just look at yourself in the lens of your child, mm-hmm. you might be a little bit more compassionate towards yourself.
Absolutely. Or if you do an audit about what type of mother you are, you might learn how to change some things.
That too. But be compassionate.
Yes. Always be compassionate. Compassion first.
Yes.
All right. Bye, guys.